Okay, now we're going to get started. So we have Steven. He is going to do some Puppet demos.
All right. How's it going? Okay. My name's Steve Thwaites. And I live and work in London as a solutions engineer at Puppet Labs. I'm here to do some stuff around Puppet Enterprise today. So I've got a few demos for you. So I know we've got like a broad range of experience in the room. I'm sure we've got a lot of expertise here. But what I want to do is just kind of start at the start with how Puppet works, and then kind of layer on the complexity, and then do some work in Puppet Enterprise in the console to show you. So starting at the start, when I explain how Puppet works to people, I usually talk about there being three ways that people talk about Puppet. There's Puppet the company that I work for. There's Puppet the command that you can run, and there's obviously the DSL as well. So Puppet the command is really, that's I guess my cable. Excuse me. That's a good start. I haven't run anything yet. Sorry about that. Something similar happened on my last demo, actually. All right, let's try that one more time. Stay. All right, let me just get my display back. Okay, let's mirror. We don't want it that size, we want it that size. Okay, and everything's tiny again. We can see it, hopefully. There we go. Sorry about that, everyone. Let's try that one more time, shall we? Okay, so yeah. So Puppet the software is really about understanding the state of configuration resources in your system. So Puppet can introspect the resources in a system and compare that against a desired state, and then reconcile the differences between the two. So the way I usually start explaining this is I'll do use Puppet resource and look at the root user on a system. And here we've got the way that Puppet's returned, and this is valid Puppet DSL. So this is the language of Puppet here. We have the type, the user. We're talking about the resource type here being a user. The instance of that type here is root, and here we have a bunch of sort of key value pairs describing the attributes for that resource in the system. So I can capture that to a file because it's valid. Okay, and that's been captured into a file. Now on this side here, I'm going to change one of those attributes. Nice easy one to change is the shell. Oh. So it's now just been sh. So if I run the same over here now, so on the left-hand side, I've captured the existing state, the way it was a moment ago. And here on the right-hand side now, we've got the way it is now. So we have it used to be bin bash, and now it's been sh. So Puppet now I'm gonna run in an application mode. So I'm gonna apply the Puppet manifest that I've captured to the same system. This is my master, my Puppet master here. Puppet apply. So I've got this Puppet file here, and I'm going to run it in no-op mode. So no-op is simulation mode. Puppet can basically compare the two, say what it would have to do in order to reconcile the differences there. And I'll do that. Small error about my DNS, but that's no problem. And here it's saying that the current value is sh, and it should be bin bash. Okay, so it would be making that change back. So I'm going to remove no-op mode and start actually applying the difference here, applying the change. Okay, and it's actually applied that now. It's actually changed it back from bin sh to bin bash. Okay, so we can define the way that we want the configuration, any aspect of the configuration of our system to be. And we can rely on Puppet to basically reconcile those differences. And not only that, we can have that running, not just for the purpose of setting it up, but we can run it day to day. I can run it over and over. This doesn't need to make any changes right now. This is just realize that everything is in compliance. Okay. So that is a single resource. Okay, that's pretty much the sort of most sort of atomic sort of unit for configuration in the Puppet DSL. Now, when you're moving on from that, when you want to start working with more larger groups of resources, we start compiling them into classes, putting them together into classes. And this is a really common pattern here. I don't know if anyone's seen this before. This is called what we call the trifecta. It's kind of package, file, and service. Okay, so here we have three resources. We have a package service. We've got a file. A package resource, a file resource, and a service as well. And in each case, we're saying what we want the end state to be. We're focusing on the end state. So here, we're saying that we want the package to be installed. So it's going to use operating system native tools. In this case, it's Red Hat, so we're using Yum to go and collect OpenSSH server and install it for us. And then we're going to pull down a configuration file, put it in the right place. We're actually going to source that from the Puppet master itself, or the Puppet file server. And then we also are controlling the service we always want it to be running every time Puppet's checking in. And we want it to be enabled on boot. But we also have these other attributes here, these what we call meta parameters. Okay, so here we're dealing with the package before we deal with the file, which makes sense. There's not much point in configuring OpenSSH if it isn't present on the system. And here we've got the service which is subscribed to the file, which means that if the file changes for any reason, this resource is subscribed to it, so it will refresh the service in order for those changes to take effect. Okay, so this is one class. You can have many classes that describe the state of a service as you want it, and those make up modules. Okay, so here, where am I? 3. Here you can see. I've basically, because of the Wi-Fi in this place, you can see I've had a few errors when trying to do it, but in a moment when things were working nicely, I was able to use the Forge to use this Puppet module install command. Puppet module install will go out to the Puppet Forge, which is the centralized Puppet hosted resource for community and Puppet Labs authored Puppet modules. So this means you can you don't need to write absolutely everything from scratch. You can just visit the Puppet Forge, select something, actually have it open here, and search this service for any of the 2,200. Actually, does anyone have anything published on the Forge? Anyone in this room? Does anyone have anything published on the Forge right now? Good for you, sir. Anyone else? You? Good. Upload your Forge, upload your modules and make the Forge more useful to everyone. Here on the right, though, I just wanted to call out, so that NTP module that I've just installed is one of the supported ones. So in the most recent release of Puppet Enterprise, we are offering supported modules, so people who have a support contract with Puppet Labs can get support for the way that these modules work and request features and the like. So that's resources. Resources are bundled together into classes. Classes bundled together into modules. Modules available on the Forge. So that's kind of Puppet working in isolation. We operate it on just one server here, but I just wanted to flick across to this. This is the only slide I've got, I promise. This is a little bit about how Puppet Enterprise is put together. So it's the whole stack of Puppet projects all together in a kind of a validated QA'd. We maintain the security on it. We install it into a separate part of the operating system so it won't stomp on your system Ruby, for example. And this is just kind of, this diagram kind of shows how those components can be deployed and what a Puppet run looks like in an agent server setup. So we have broad operating system support here. I mean, just on this diagram, we've got Debian, RHEL, and Windows, but we support commercial Unisys as well, Ubuntu and the like. And this middle server here is performing an agent-based run. So the Puppet agent's installed on the system. It runs as a daemon. By default, that's running every half hour, and that's going to use its config file to find out which server it should be checking in with, and it will contact the Puppet master. So the first thing that happens, Puppet agent is invoked somehow, and there's multiple ways to do this. So if it's running as a daemon, then that will kick in every half hour. It can be invoked via cron. You can run it interactively, as I was doing it before. There. And the first thing that does, it runs factor and generates a bunch of inventory information to send up to the Puppet master. So the puppet master uses generally speaking, the certificate name to identify that node, and then undergoes this process called classification. So it's where which classes, which I mentioned before, which classes should be applied to this particular node. And that's what the Puppet Enterprise console is performing, the role that it's performing in this setup here. The Enterprise console is a ENC in Puppet Enterprise. So the cert name is sent to the console uses its backend database to determine which classes should apply to that system, and then a catalog is compiled. So that's step 4 in this diagram. We have all the classes being compiled into a catalog for that individual node. The catalog goes back. Then the agent gets to work applying that configuration. Then on completion, whether it's success or failure, the report gets sent to the master, and then the report gets kept in Puppet DB for long term. Now, so the Enterprise console really has two main functions. One of which is the classification service, as I said before, but it also acts as a front end for looking into report information. So we can have a look at that now. Just a moment. Across here. Cool. So I'll log in. Okay, great. So this is my virtualized setup on my Mac here. We've got so this is like the home screen when you log in. I've got a bunch of virtual machines running in my Vagrant environment on this Mac, different operating systems and the like. And here, this is the screen when you get when you originally log in. This is just going to give you kind of like a at-a-glance view of what the health of the environment under management is like. So here we've got a bunch of color-coded stuff. You can see that these nodes are all basically in compliance because they're all green. So at the last Puppet run, no changes were required at all. The ones in blue means that some changes were required in order to make it compliant, but now that they are. If anything was in amber here, you'd see that we'd run a simulation mode, so some changes were required, but no operations were taken. And if there was any kind of issue with the Puppet runner tool, we'd register failures. The console also gives you this kind of radiator view, which is quite nice if you want to put it up in your network operations center or something like that. And here we've got all the reports available to us. So this is using the Puppet DB backend. It's using the API to reach and get hold of that information. So I'm going to pick out a particular node here. Let's go to Senos 65 alpha. Okay, so I get information specific to this node here. So we have the classes which are applied, groups which are groups of classes that you can apply together. And this is pretty much a vanilla setup. There's nothing's really been done on this environment yet, apart from the installation of the PE agent on the system here. So it's got mcollective, it's got the Puppet agent too. You get some information about how long runtimes have been taking, so approximately how long each Puppet run has been taking, and the report specific to this node going back in time. You can go further back, as far back as you need to. And we have all the inventory information, so we have all the facts that were generated on that system. That includes, of course, any custom facts that you've written, anything that you might have made specifically for your environment. These would be recorded here too. So I can actually jump into a particular report. Let's have a quick look at a report. So not a lot has happened in the last one, so no changes were made, but you can see we gather some metrics, so we can see which resources have changed, how many have failed, how many were skipped, etc., and how long this has been taking. This information down here at the bottom is quite useful because you can kind of break down how long each phase of a Puppet apply has been taking on that node. And it can be useful for identifying either performance issues in the way that you've written your modules, if it's too heavily dependent on lots of file resources, for example. And it can be useful for sort of scaling. You can kind of see, is the config retrieval time too long? Is it are we hammering our masters too much? So back here at the top, you can see the log as well, which is pretty much what you would see running it on the CLI effectively. Yeah. So what you would see if you're running it interactively, and then after that we have all the individual events that have occurred during that Puppet run. So all of the resources which are under management, whether or not any have changed, all of these have remained unchanged. Okay. So I've installed the NTP module on my master here. And so I have these. So these are the classes that are available for me to work with. These are all just the vanilla ones included. So I'm going to add a class right now. Okay, because you could have a whole bunch of classes in your module path, but you wouldn't necessarily want to have all of them presented to you in the console, because they could just be, working in the background. They could be ones that are just called by other classes, or they could just be a bucket of parameters or something like that. So here I can query this. So this is looked. The last time I hit that page, it's actually gone and looked at the module path and dug them out, and I can pull NTP into the console here. So I'm going to add the class. Okay, and that's in there now. And I can make a group out of it. So I can say I want an NTP group made up of the NTP classes. And here I have the option to edit parameters related to that. So it's actually reached into the class that I've named in this group, and it's presenting the parameters available to me here. So it's got all these sensible defaults. I can override these in this particular group. So let's take the servers. I happen to know that this particular module relies on standard lib. It's going to validate that what I type in is an array. So I can just say 0.de, because where we are, pool ntp org. And then we'll do another one, 1.de pool ntp org. And close that. And we're done there. Okay, and I'm going to add a couple of nodes in. Let's add my Debian node in here and create that. Okay. So what I've done there is I've taken the class, I've added some of my own custom parameters, and I've actually bound it to a particular node, my Debian node. So next time the Debian node checks in, that should be applying the NTP configuration I've described. So let's do that. We'll do that actually on the interactively on that node. Okay. So you can see I've got it right here. I've got opt. I've actually called out the absolute path to that. I'm running Puppet Agent T on there. So this is going to check in with the node. It's running factor. It's compiling all the information, sending that to the master. It's going to pull down the catalog now and start applying. Okay, and you can just see here a little in the output right here. This is actually written the NTP conf file, and these are the entries that I specified in the console there. Okay, so that's just a simple example. I can do something a little more interesting involving more than one class. So I can pull a couple more classes in. Do this one more time. Add a class. I'm going to grab my Tomcat one. I happen to know I need this one. And let's do Jenkins as well. So I'm going to make a Jenkins CI group. So those classes are available to me in the console now. I'm now going to add a group. And it's Tomcat and Jenkins. Now I could, again, I can make changes, call out a specific version. Yes?
Can you show hashes in this front end?
Not in this front end, no. It's, at the moment, I think it can take arrays and specific variables. I believe at the moment that's where it starts and stops for now. So let's create that. Okay, we have that here. And again, I can edit this and call out a couple of nodes. My 65 alpha, 65 bits, for example, and update that. Now, so last time I logged into the node, I was logged in, I run it interactively. I don't necessarily want to do that every time, especially in large-scale operations. So I can go across to this live management here. Okay, so live management is using the underlying M collective installed that's present in Puppet Enterprise. Okay, so I'm able to interact with nodes on like an ad hoc basis. If I need to just query nodes for particular information, I can use it to perform ad hoc Puppet runs. I can compare resources as well. So here, this is just queried the collective, and it's giving me back all of the nodes in my environment here. I can use some wildcards here. CentOS Splat, for example. Okay, that works. Let's try something else. Something I'm going to do basically a fact-based query here I can run against just the Red Hat nodes, or just want the Red Hat nodes to come back to me. And this is doing this live, okay? This is not, querying a backend database. This has gone out to the collector and asked them all to check in. But I just want A and B. And here on the right-hand side, I can now, do some operations on that. This browse resources pane, I could, let's compare a 5 and 6 node to get some differences. I could query all the packages across these. Let's do that. This is doing a live query of the RPMs present on that system. I can compare them as well. There's no similarity between the two because they're effectively different versions of the distribution, but I could say SSL 101. All right, we need to stop this demo now. No. But you can see, this is precisely the kind of scenario that this is useful for. Okay, this is me querying. Well, what is my exposure to? What versions are my packages? Where am I using this? Again, you could speed that up again. Excuse me. I could compare users, right? So here on in my user list here, I could maybe have a known working set up on one system and one where your particular user's experiencing problems. You can just compare each of those side by side. That's really neat. So we can control Puppet. That's really what I want to do here. So I've got, I applied that to A and B, so I can just choose those guys. I can enable and disable, so if you just made, you realize you made a horrific mistake and nodes are starting to fall as they check in or something like that, you could basically hit disable here and mcollective will reach out and touch a lock file on the system there to stop Puppet from running on them. Enable does the reverse, but I can do run once. And I have some options here, so I could say that no op true, for example, and it will perform a no op run. I'm just going to hit run. Now, I happen to know that the Tomcat and Jenkins rely on pretty good Wi-Fi in order to actually, download some packages. This is an online demo, unfortunately, so this could be a 4-hour demo if we wait to see the result. So I'm going to move on. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to show was around, what have we got? Okay. So here on I did clear up my console beforehand, but it was the resizing which brought it all back. But here on the left side, you can see an answer file. So when you're installing Puppet Enterprise, we actually have a scripted installer that's interactive. You can run it and just plug in the values, and it will install the whole stack for you. So it's all kind of ready to rock immediately after that. You can run the installer and just have it record this answer file. And then that can be made available for you to use and reuse. Or you can run it and just call the answer file, and that will install everything for you. So this is the one from my environment here. So it's asking questions, what components do we want installed in this setup? Which, are we installing the console here? What are the database names? What are the database ports, etc. So you can make your own customizations here. On the right-hand side here, we have a method of installing an agent on a system. So on Debian-based and RHEL-based systems, we have this feature in PE which allows us to basically curl a bash file that's going to add a repository. So the master is in this case functioning as a Yum repository. So if I run that on the right side, that is. Oh. Hello. Is it running? Beg my pardon. Okay, good. Okay, so that's just added a repository onto that system. It's now, Yum's doing its thing, and it's going to start pulling down all the P-specific packages. It's going to run it. So it really makes it easy to do a rapid install of Puppet Enterprise. So it's all ready to actually point at the right master, etc. Okay, that means previously you'd have to have a customized answer file, but this brings everything up, installed, so including mcollective, including everything else. So we'll let that run. Back here on the console, I just want to give you a tour of a few of the other amenities available in here. So we've seen the nodes screen. Groups and classes just give you a kind of view zeroed in on those particular objects. Reports as well just gives us a nice filtered view, so you can look at all the failed, no-op, etc. changes, unchanged runs. And inventory search as well allows us to query Puppet DB based on facts for nodes that have checked in. I wanted to show you just a couple of other things. We've got events in here. So this is the event inspector, which has been in Puppet Enterprise since 3.1, so just the beginning of this year. This is a way of looking at the event information generated by Puppet runs, another way of doing it. So whereas before we were looking at a whole bunch of, like a list of reports, and you could have one failed resource in there and it shows the whole thing up as a failure. So you could have, for example, you could walk into work one day and you could have a large environment, many hundreds of nodes, and they all are showing failures. But it could just be one thing that's causing that. So here in this console, we can actually look at things from different angles. So we're no longer just looking at a big list of nodes. What's wrong with this one? What's wrong with the next one? We can instead go to each class in turn. We can say that we want to look at the ones just based around this class. So this class has changed. This would be one from when I've run NTP before. NTP, which ones were affected by Debian hosts? What changed happened? It was this particular resource that changed, and here's the detail. Okay, so you can zero in. So if you had a situation in which you had many failures, you could say which resources are failing. Which resources are failing across the board, and you can do this in the last 30 minutes and up to the last 24 hours. So this gives you a much more kind of a fine-grained look, or a way of querying it from different angles. A few other things. So when that node's finished installing, the agent on there would have a node request, of course. So normally you would be signing cert requests as they come in from agents, or you'd have some sort of auto-sign policy. Here you can just do that interactively. Okay, you'll be able to just either accept all, accept them individually, and they'll be allowed to check in again next time. Here, this gives you a license view. So, for those of you who don't know, we give away like a 10-node free license for evaluation of Puppet Enterprise. So you can just download and try that. That's what the Learning VM is actually also based on as well. So that's something you can try. And you just, if you go into 11 licenses for whatever reason, it's just going to warn you. It's not going to stop working. It's just going to start warning you. And you've got this convenient link for contacting us and before the police come over or whatever. Here in the admin view, you've got the admin tools, so I can control access to this. Okay, I can control access to this console. So we can tie the authentication of the enterprise console into LDAP and Active Directory and Google Authentication, and you can give each user or a group of users either read-only or read-write or administrative access to the console. So this means you could maybe allow people to look at it for the purpose of diagnosing issues or troubleshooting, or just looking at the report information, while restricting to yourself the ability to classify. Yes? Is there an API? Not in this version. What can I say? So what aspect, what would you want to deal with in the API? Okay, well, okay, so listen, there is an API, there's a rake API on the master. Okay, so you can, on the console node, you can automate these kind of operations like adding a group, adding a node to a group with rake. But that is based on the console itself, so you would have to somehow invoke those rake tasks in order to make that happen. Looking further ahead, there's like I don't know if you've heard the node classifier project, which is more of a sort of web service dedicated to data and node classification, and that does have an API by design. That's something that will be much more functional in that kind of way. And just while on that subject, I mean, that has several other benefits as well in terms of the ability to control access at a very fine-grained level. At the moment, this is the access to the console you're controlling, whereas a future version will be able to control access to particular environments, particular groups of nodes, etc. You'll be able to drill down. Does that answer your question? Cool. Okay, so that's the console. That's how you install it as well. I've been through, some Puppet runs, the kind of information that's generated by them, and some of the, extra bells and whistles you get when you use Puppet Enterprise. There's a few things I couldn't demo for you today. One of which being the Cloud Provisioner, which is a set of tools which tie into cloud and virtualization platform APIs, which allow you to, generate new instances, new virtual machines, install the Puppet agent, and classify them as a single operation, which is really useful when you're driving for really high-order automation. The other thing is Razor. That's actually in Puppet Enterprise 3.2 has a technology preview, so that's kind of we're bundling it, but with some caveats. You know, it's an early version that's not fully supported by us yet, but that's around bare metal provisioning, both for that would work on. Yes.
You're already supporting IPMIs?
IPMI for in Razor. I cannot recall. It may be that it is either nearly there or is there. I know that it's certainly on the menu, though. It's something that they want to be able to, in order to drive the whole automation through, to actually power up a node and install, and then all the way through to actually handing off to the Puppet agent. So, are there any questions? Any questions about Puppet Enterprise? Okay, then I'll wrap up. Thank you for your time, everyone.